Between the Pacific Ocean and the Rocky Mountains lies British Columbia. Canada's most beautiful province, where ancient temperate rainforests meet glacial peaks and thousands of kilometers of wild coastline hold secrets that few have witnessed. This western edge of North America contains some of the planet's last untouched wilderness, from the Great Bear Rainforest, where white Kermode bears roam beneath thousand-year-old cedars, to the powder-covered peaks of Whistler that rise directly from sea level to alpine heights in dramatic vertical relief. The province spans nearly 1 million square kilometers, larger than France and Germany combined, yet remains home to just 5 million people, most clustered in the southwest corner around Vancouver. Beyond the glass towers of this Pacific metropolis, the landscape transforms into a realm where nature operates on a scale that defies comprehension. Fjords carved by ancient glaciers cut deep into the coastal mountains, their waters reflecting peaks that soar over 4,000 meters into Pacific storms. Islands by the thousands scatter across the Inside Passage, each holding fragments of ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth. Our journey begins in Vancouver City, where the coastal mountains plunge into the Salish Sea, creating one of the world's most stunning urban settings. This Pacific metropolis sits cradled between the coastal mountains and the Salish Sea, a rare urban center where wilderness presses against downtown towers. "500,000 people call the city proper home, yet bears still wander through North Shore neighborhoods and eagles circle above harbor cranes. Vancouver exists as both gateway and destination, where Asia meets North America and urban life blends with untamed nature. Downtown Vancouver pulses with energy between water on three sides. Glass towers catch Pacific light, while century-old buildings anchor street corners with brick and stone dignity. Gastown's cobblestones echo with footsteps where the city began in 1867. Its steam clock, marking time for both tourists and locals rushing to work. The business district flows into residential neighborhoods without harsh borders, creating a walkable core where office workers share sidewalks with residents walking dogs past harbor views. Stanley Park spreads across 400 hectares at the city's northwestern tip, larger than New York's Central Park. Ancient Douglas firs and western red cedars tower above trails where Vancouverites escape without leaving city limits. The seawall wraps around the park's edge for nearly 9 kilometers, following the waterline past beaches and rocky shores. Cyclists, runners, and walkers share this ribbon of pavement, while harbor seals surface in the waters below, and great blue herons fish in tidal pools. English Bay opens wide, where the city meets the Pacific, its sandy arc drawing crowds when summer sun breaks through coastal clouds. The beach stretches for blocks, backed by grass, where picnics spread and volleyball games last until sunset paints the water gold. Ships wait at anchor in the bay, bound for ports across the Pacific, while locals swim in waters that stay cool even in August. This meeting of city and sea defines Vancouver's character, where urban ambitions never stray far from tidal rhythms. Where the sea-to-sky highway winds between ocean and mountain, Shannon Falls Provincial Park protects one of British Columbia's most spectacular natural displays. This small park along Howe Sound guards a waterfall that drops 335 meters from granite cliffs. The falls thunder down in multiple cascades through ancient forest. Mist from the plunging water feeds the moss and ferns that blanket the surrounding rocks. Shannon Falls ranks as British Columbia's third highest waterfall. The water begins high on Mount Sky Pilot and Mount Habrich before gathering into Shannon Creek. During spring melt, the falls roar with snowmelt from the peaks above. Even in drier months, the cascade maintains its flow, fed by mountain springs and small glaciers hidden in the high country. The Squamish First Nation knew these falls for thousands of years before European arrival. They called them Quelsi, meaning going all around the place. The falls served as a landmark for coastal travel and held spiritual significance. Today, a short trail leads from the parking area through towering Douglas firs and western red cedars to viewing platforms. The easy walk takes only minutes, yet brings visitors face to face with raw mountain power. Granite giants rise ahead as we venture deeper into the Squamish Region, a landscape shaped by forces beyond human scale. This corridor between ocean and mountains holds some of British Columbia's most spectacular scenery. Here, massive granite walls rise directly from sea level, while glacial waters carve deep channels through ancient rock. The Squamish Nation has called this territory home for thousands of years, their name meaning Mother of the Wind, in recognition of the powerful forces that shape this land. The Squamish chief dominates the skyline like a sleeping giant turned to stone. This granite monolith rises 700 meters straight up from the valley floor, making it one of the largest granite walls in North America. Rock climbers from around the world come to test themselves against its sheer faces. The chief formed 100 million years ago when molten rock cooled deep underground, then glaciers exposed and polished its surface during the last ice age. 3 distinct summits crown its massive bulk, each offering views that stretch from ocean inlets to glacier-capped peaks. Howe Sound Fjord cuts a dramatic path from the Pacific Ocean deep into the coast mountains. This glacially carved inlet stretches 42 kilometers inland, its dark waters plunging to depths of 300 meters. Mountains rise directly from the shoreline, their slopes covered in temperate rainforest that clings to near-vertical terrain. The fjord serves as a marine highway where orcas hunt salmon and sea lions rest on rocky outcrops. Morning mists often fill the sound, creating scenes of primordial beauty that have remained unchanged for millennia. The sea-to-sky highway threads between these natural monuments, connecting ocean to alpine in one of the world's most scenic drives. This ribbon of asphalt clings to cliffsides and spans rushing rivers as it climbs from sea level to mountain passes. Every turn reveals new vistas of waterfalls cascading down granite walls or eagles soaring above forest canopies. The highway follows ancient First Nations trading routes that connected coastal and interior peoples for thousands of years. Today, it carries travelers through landscapes so dramatic they seem crafted by giants. Beyond the sea cliffs and fjords, the coast mountains reveal their alpine heart at Garibaldi Provincial Park. This vast alpine sanctuary holds glaciers, volcanic peaks, and turquoise lakes that seem too vivid to be real. The park takes its name from Mount Garibaldi, a dormant volcano that towers 2,678 meters above the surrounding peaks. Ancient ice fields carved these valleys over millennia, leaving behind a landscape that shifts from dense coastal forest to barren rock and snow within a single day's hike. Garibaldi Lake sits like a jewel at 1,500 meters elevation, its waters colored an impossible shade of turquoise by glacial silt. The lake formed 9,000 years ago when a massive lava flow blocked the valley, creating a natural dam. 5 glaciers feed this alpine basin, their meltwater carrying fine rock particles that scatter sunlight into brilliant blues and greens. The 9-kilometer trail to reach the lake climbs steadily through old-growth forest before breaking into subalpine meadows filled with wildflowers in summer. From Garibaldi Lake, the trail to Panorama Ridge climbs another 5 kilometers and 600 vertical meters to one of British Columbia's most spectacular viewpoints. The ridge sits at 2,133 meters, offering a 360-degree view that stretches from volcanic Black Tusk to the Tantalus Range. On clear days, hikers can see all the way to Vancouver Island and Mount Baker in Washington state. The exposed ridge requires careful timing. Afternoon storms roll in quickly, and snow lingers well into July on these heights. Higher still into the mountains, Joffre Lake's Provincial Park unveils a trio of turquoise gems carved by ancient ice. This protected wilderness sits 35 kilometers north of Pemberton, where glacial forces have carved a landscape of extraordinary beauty. 3 turquoise lakes rest like jewels in the mountain valleys, each one more spectacular than the last. The park preserves 1,460 hectares of alpine terrain, where ancient glaciers continue their slow work of shaping the land. Lower Joffre Lake greets visitors just minutes from the trailhead, its waters glowing with an almost unnatural blue-green color. This phenomenon comes from glacial flour, tiny particles of rock ground to dust by the Mathieu and Stonecrop glaciers high above. The suspended minerals catch and scatter sunlight, creating colors that seem to belong more to tropical seas than mountain lakes. The lower lake stretches 800 meters across, surrounded by dense forests of Douglas fir and western hemlock. The trail to Lower Joffre Lake opened these wonders to the public in 1995, though the Lilwat Nation has known these waters for millennia. They call this place Tsil, meaning beautiful, and their oral histories speak of hunting grounds and spiritual sites throughout the valley. Today, wooden boardwalks protect the fragile alpine ecosystem while allowing thousands of visitors each year to witness this glacial masterpiece. The lake's accessibility makes it British Columbia's most photographed alpine destination, yet its beauty remains undiminished by popularity. A legendary mountain realm awaits at Whistler, where two mighty peaks define the skyline of the sea-to-sky corridor. This alpine sanctuary transforms from coastal rainforest to glaciated summits in a single dramatic ascent. The valleys here hold stories written in ice and stone, shaped by forces that began their work millions of years before humans first gazed upon these peaks. Whistler Village sits at the base of two mighty mountains, a purpose-built community that feels both modern and timeless. Stone and timber buildings line pedestrian walkways where no cars disturb the mountain air. The village pulses with life year-round, its rhythm changing with the seasons. Winter brings skiers from across the globe, while summer reveals hiking trails and bike paths that wind through old-growth forests. The architecture mirrors the landscape. Peaked roofs shed heavy snow, while wide windows frame views of surrounding peaks. Whistler Mountain stands as the elder of the two giants, its slopes holding runs that have tested Olympic champions. The Peak 2 Peak gondola connects this summit to its neighbor, suspended 436 meters above the valley floor. From the alpine zone, glaciers spread like frozen rivers between rocky ridges. These high places remain snow-covered even in August, feeding streams that cascade down through meadows bursting with wildflowers. Black bears forage these slopes in summer, while mountain goats traverse ledges that would stop any human climber. Blackcomb peaks rise even higher, their jagged profile defining the eastern skyline. The Blackcomb Glacier stretches across the upper reaches, a remnant of the Ice Age that once buried this entire region. Ski runs here descend over 1,600 vertical meters, one of the longest continuous descents in North America. Beyond the groomed trails, backcountry zones offer solitude among ancient volcanic rocks and hidden ice caves. These peaks catch Pacific storms first, creating the deep powder snow that has made this region famous among mountain enthusiasts worldwide. Water and stone collide at Brandywine Falls Provincial Park, one of the sea-to-sky corridor's most powerful natural spectacles. Located along the sea-to-sky highway between Squamish and Whistler, this protected area showcases the raw power of water meeting ancient volcanic rock. The park sits within the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation, who have known these falls for thousands of years. Here, the forces that shaped British Columbia's dramatic landscape remain visible in every tumbling cascade and basalt column. Brandywine Falls plunges 70 meters over a cliff edge, creating one of the province's most spectacular waterfalls. The water originates from Brandywine Creek, fed by glacial melt from the surrounding peaks. As it drops, the falls create a constant mist that nourishes the moss and ferns clinging to the canyon walls. The best viewing platform extends over the gorge, offering visitors a direct look at this natural spectacle. Below the falls, the creek has carved a deep canyon through layers of volcanic rock, exposing millions of years of geological history in the cliff faces. A short drive north brings us to Daisy Lake Viewpoint, where the landscape opens into a completely different scene. This reservoir stretches between mountain walls, its surface reflecting the surrounding peaks on calm days. Created in 1957 for hydroelectric power, Daisy Lake has since become part of the natural rhythm of the valley. The viewpoint sits high above the water, providing panoramic views that stretch from Black Tusk in the south to the peaks around Whistler in the north. On clear mornings, the lake acts as a perfect mirror, doubling the mountains and creating scenes of remarkable symmetry. Glacial melt paints Seton Lake in shades of impossible jade, a color that seems more dream than reality. This lake stretches through the sea-to-sky corridor like a turquoise ribbon between towering peaks, running for nearly 20 kilometers through a valley that connects the coast to the interior plateau. The water here holds a color that seems impossible, a deep jade green that shifts to brilliant blue where sunlight touches its surface. The lake formed thousands of years ago when retreating glaciers left behind this natural reservoir between mountain walls. These slopes rise almost vertically from the water's edge, creating a narrow corridor where weather patterns collide. Pacific storms meet dry interior air masses right above these waters. Morning mists cling to the mountainsides, while afternoon winds whip across the surface, creating whitecaps that race from one end to the other. The Statimks people have lived along these shores for millennia, their villages positioned where creeks flow into the lake. Today, the few roads that reach Seton Lake reveal a landscape largely unchanged since those ancient times. The water remains cold year-round, fed by glacial melt and mountain streams that tumble down the surrounding peaks in countless waterfalls during spring runoff. A short ferry ride transforms everything as we arrive at the Sunshine Coast, where Pacific waves gentle their approach against forested shores. This 180-kilometer stretch of coastline sits isolated from the mainland road network, accessible only by boat or plane. The Coast Salish peoples called this place home for thousands of years before European settlers arrived. Today, small communities dot the shoreline between Howe Sound and Desolation Sound, each maintaining its own character while sharing the same stunning natural backdrop. Bonnybrook Beach spreads along the water near the community of Gower Point. The beach takes its name from the creek that flows through dense forest before meeting the sea. At low tide, the exposed rocks reveal tide pools filled with purple sea stars, green anemones, and tiny hermit crabs. Eagles perch in the Douglas firs that line the shore, watching for salmon in the shallows, while seals surface in the kelp beds just offshore. Setchelt sits at the narrowest point of the peninsula, where the Setchelt Inlet nearly cuts through to the Strait of Georgia. The Shishal Nation has lived here since time immemorial, and their cultural center now shares their history with visitors. The town serves as the coast's unofficial capital, with marinas filled with fishing boats and pleasure craft. From the government wharf, the view stretches across the water to Vancouver Island's mountains, their peaks often wrapped in Pacific clouds. Roberts Creek brings us to a community that moves at its own pace, known locally as the Creek. Giant cedars and firs shade the winding roads that lead down to the water. The beach here consists of smooth pebbles that clatter with each wave, creating a rhythm that defines the shoreline. At the historic Roberts Creek Pier, built in 1930, locals gather to fish for salmon, while artists find inspiration in the ever-changing light on the water. Earth's largest intact temperate rainforest awaits in the Great Bear, a wilderness sanctuary where white bears move like ghosts through ancient cedar groves. This 6.4 million hectare expanse stretches along the central and northern coast of British Columbia, from the Discovery Islands to the Alaska border. Here, thousand-year-old western red cedars tower above moss-covered valleys where wolves, grizzlies, and the rare white Kermode bear move through shadows cast by ancient trees. The forest exists as it has for millennia, untouched by roads or development, accessible only by boat or float plane through a maze of fjords and islands. The spirit bear habitat forms the sacred heart of this rainforest, centered on Princess Royal and Gribble Islands. These remote islands shelter the world's entire population of Kermode bears, a unique white variant of the black bear found nowhere else. Scientists estimate only 400 of these ghost-like creatures exist, their cream-colored fur allowing them to blend with fog and lichen-draped trees. The bears emerge during salmon runs, standing motionless beside streams as fish swim past their pale forms, nearly invisible against granite boulders worn smooth by centuries of rushing water. First Nations peoples have protected these spirit bears for thousands of years, considering them sacred beings never to be hunted. The Kitasoo, Zaitshais, and Gitga'at nations maintain their ancestral connection to this land, guiding conservation efforts that balance traditional knowledge with modern science. Their stories tell of Raven turning every 10th black bear white as a reminder of the Ice Age when glaciers covered this coast. Today, Indigenous Guardian programs monitor bear populations, salmon streams, and the health of old-growth forests that sustain this entire ecosystem, ensuring the spirit bear's habitat remains intact for future generations. The Hecate Strait carries us 80 kilometers west across turbulent waters to Haida, Gwaii, islands that rise from the Pacific like fragments of time itself. These remote islands rise from the Pacific like fragments of an ancient world, separated from the continent by 80 kilometers of turbulent water. Known as the Galapagos of the North, this chain of 150 islands harbors unique species and ecosystems shaped by millennia of isolation. The Haida people have called these islands home for over 13,000 years, their culture woven into every inlet and forest grove. On the eastern shore of Graham Island, Bonanza Beach stretches for kilometers along Hecate Strait. Wild Pacific storms deposit driftwood logs the size of houses along this remote coastline. The beach takes its name from early prospectors who searched for gold in the black sand deposits. Today, beachcombers find different treasures: Japanese glass fishing floats that drift across the Pacific, agates polished smooth by waves, and whale bones bleached white by salt and sun. The isolation of Bonanza Beach creates conditions found nowhere else in British Columbia. Sitka spruce trees lean away from relentless ocean winds, their branches sculpted into natural bonsai forms. Behind the beach, dense forests of cedar and hemlock create a green wall where black bears feed on salmon in hidden streams. Eagles patrol the shoreline in numbers that defy counting, while gray whales pass close to shore during their annual migrations between Mexico and Alaska. The continent ends at Tofino, where storm waves and ancient rainforest meet in raw, untamed beauty. This small town of just 2,000 residents sits at the edge of the continent, where storm waves crash against ancient beaches and temperate rainforest meets the sea. Here, the Nuuchah-Nulth peoples have called this coast home for thousands of years, their culture woven into every inlet and forest path. Tofino serves as the gateway to some of Canada's most dramatic coastal wilderness, where nature remains untamed and powerful. Pacific Rim National Park Reserve stretches along this rugged coastline, protecting 511 square kilometers of beaches, rainforest, and marine habitat. Long Beach forms the park's centerpiece, 16 kilometers of sand and surf that face the open Pacific. Giant driftwood logs lie scattered across the shore, some weighing several tons, tossed here by winter storms like matchsticks. The Rainforest Trail winds through groves of western red cedar and Sitka spruce, some standing over 800 years old and reaching heights of 70 meters. These ancient trees create cathedral-like spaces where moss hangs in curtains and the forest floor stays soft with centuries of fallen needles. North of Tofino, Clayoquot Sound encompasses 350,000 hectares of temperate rainforest, fjords, and islands. This UNESCO Biosphere Reserve contains valleys that have never known logging, where trees grow to sizes rarely seen elsewhere on Earth. The Sound's maze of waterways shelters grey whales, sea otters, and pods of orcas that hunt salmon in the narrow channels. Black bears patrol the beaches at low tide, turning over rocks to find crabs, while eagles watch from towering snags. The Mears Island Big Tree Trail takes visitors through groves where cedars measure over 18 meters in circumference, their bases forming natural rooms large enough to shelter entire families. Vancouver Island emerges as the Pacific Northwest's crown jewel, a landmass that dwarfs many European nations. This massive landform stretches 460 kilometers from north to south, larger than many European nations. Mountains rise from its spine, while ancient forests cascade down to meet the ocean. Here, civilization and wilderness exist in careful balance, with communities tucked into harbors, while bears and wolves roam just beyond town limits. Nanaimo Mountain stands as a sentinel above the central island landscape. Rising 1,021 meters into Pacific skies, this peak offers views that stretch from the Strait of Georgia to the coastal ranges of the mainland. The mountain holds old-growth Douglas fir forests on its lower slopes. These trees have witnessed centuries pass, their massive trunks recording the island's changing seasons in rings of wood. Below the mountain, Nanaimo Harbor opens to the Salish Sea in a protected basin. This natural port has sheltered vessels for thousands of years, first the cedar canoes of the Snoonimux people, then sailing ships seeking coal and timber. Today, float planes land between pleasure boats, while ferries connect the island to the mainland. The harbor remains a working waterfront where fishing boats unload their catch and tugboats guide log booms to mills. Deep in British Columbia's interior, where two mountain ranges collide, Revelstoke stands as a portal to legendary alpine wilderness. This mountain town sits at the confluence of the Columbia and Illecillewaet rivers, surrounded by peaks that rise over 3,000 meters into Pacific storms. The Selkirk and Monashee mountain ranges converge here, creating a landscape of vertical relief that draws adventurers from across the globe. Snow falls in legendary quantities, with some areas receiving over 18 meters annually, feeding glaciers and creating the deep powder conditions that define this region. Mount Revelstoke National Park protects 260 square kilometers of this mountain ecosystem, where subalpine meadows burst with wildflowers each summer. The park climbs from valley forests of ancient cedar and hemlock to alpine tundra, where mountain goats traverse rocky ledges. The Meadows in the Sky Parkway winds 26 kilometers up the mountainside, gaining 1,400 meters of elevation to reach summit areas normally accessible only to mountaineers. At the top, boardwalks lead through fragile alpine meadows where over 400 plant species bloom in compressed growing seasons between snowmelts. The Giant Cedars Boardwalk reveals the park's lower elevation treasures, where trees, over 800 years old, tower above moss-covered nurse logs. These inland temperate rainforests exist only in a narrow belt through British Columbia's interior mountains, sustained by Pacific moisture. Some cedars here measure over 18 meters in circumference, their massive trunks supporting canopies that filter sunlight into green cathedral light. Black bears forage through these forests, while caribou migrate through higher elevations, part of the last remaining herds in the southern Canadian mountains. The Rocky Mountains announce their presence at Kootenay National Park, where the Continental Divide splits water toward two oceans. This protected landscape spreads across 1,406 square kilometers of mountain wilderness in southeastern British Columbia. Here, the Continental Divide forms the eastern boundary, separating waters that flow to the Pacific from those heading to the Atlantic. This protected landscape holds ice-carved valleys, mineral hot springs, and the famous radium hot springs that have drawn visitors for over a century. Marble Canyon cuts through the landscape like a natural sculpture gallery. The Tokum Creek has carved this narrow gorge 60 meters deep through ancient limestone and dolomite rock. The canyon walls reveal 500 million years of geological history in their layers. A trail follows the rim, crossing 7 bridges that span the chasm, each offering views into the turquoise depths below. The marble-like appearance comes from the polished limestone walls, smoothed by centuries of rushing water. In spring, snowmelt transforms the creek into a thundering torrent that echoes off the canyon walls. The limestone here formed when this region lay beneath a tropical sea, long before the Rocky Mountains existed. Now, the exposed rock faces show fossils of ancient sea creatures frozen in stone, remnants of that prehistoric ocean. Thunder and wonder define Yoho National Park, where the Rockies reveal their most dramatic face. This protected wilderness sits on British Columbia's eastern border, holding glaciers, waterfalls, and alpine lakes within its boundaries. The Kicking Horse River carved deep valleys through these peaks over millions of years. Today, those same forces continue shaping one of Canada's most dramatic mountain landscapes. Takakau Falls announces itself with thunder that echoes off canyon walls. Water plunges 373 meters from the Waputink icefield, making this Canada's second highest waterfall. The Cree word Takakau means wonderful, and standing at its base explains why. Meltwater from ancient glaciers crashes down in a single drop, sending mist across the valley floor. The falls change with the seasons. A raging torrent in summer becomes a frozen column of ice by winter. Emerald Lake rests in a glacial basin surrounded by the President Range peaks. Its waters hold a color that seems impossible, a deep turquoise green created by rock flowers suspended in the water. This fine glacial silt catches sunlight and transforms the lake into a natural jewel. A walking trail circles the shoreline through old-growth forest, where avalanche paths have cleared openings to frame mountain views. Morning brings perfect reflections when the water lies still as glass. The Canadian Rockies reach their highest point at Mount Robson, a peak that commands the horizon with absolute authority. This UNESCO World Heritage Site encompasses 2,249 square kilometers of pristine wilderness along the Continental Divide, protecting a landscape where mountains reach their ultimate expression. Here, ancient geological forces have created a realm where glaciers, alpine meadows, and pristine rivers exist in their original state. Mount Robson Peak stands as the monarch of the Canadian Rockies at 3,954 meters. Known to the Texca cult people as Yuhai Hazkun, the mountain of the spiral road, this massive pyramid of rock and ice towers nearly 3,000 meters above the valley floor. Its summit remains hidden in clouds more than 300 days each year, creating its own weather systems. The mountain's north face presents one of the most formidable climbing challenges in North America, where hanging glaciers and avalanche zones guard the upper reaches. At the base of this giant, the Fraser River begins its 1,375-kilometer journey to the Pacific Ocean. These headwaters emerge from glacial melt and mountain springs, crystal clear and cold. The river starts as a modest stream flowing through the Valley of 1,000 Falls, gathering strength from countless tributaries. Here in its birthplace, the Fraser runs pure through untouched wilderness, far from the cities and industries it will eventually pass on its way to the sea. Leaving the mountains behind, we discover an entirely different British Columbia in the interior valleys. Kalamalka Lake Provincial Park protects a body of water unlike any other in Canada, one that changes color with the seasons. This lake shifts from deep blue to brilliant turquoise to emerald green. The transformation happens as limestone particles in the water reflect sunlight at different angles throughout the year. The park spreads across 4,209 hectares of grasslands, forests, and shoreline in the North Okanagan Valley. Warm, dry summers create conditions rare in British Columbia, supporting bunchgrass ecosystems that elsewhere in Canada exist only in small pockets. These golden hills roll down to meet the lake's edge, where beaches of fine sand invite swimmers into waters that warm to comfortable temperatures by July. The contrast between arid slopes and vivid water creates scenes that seem to belong to another continent. Trails wind through the park's diverse landscapes, revealing new perspectives of the color-changing lake at every turn. The Cougar Canyon Ecological Reserve protects one of the last stands of interior Douglas fir in the valley. These ancient trees provide shelter for over 200 bird species, while the grasslands support everything from California bighorn sheep to rare butterflies found nowhere else in the province. Indigenous peoples have known these lands for thousands of years, and their traditional plant-gathering areas remain protected within the park boundaries. Wine country awaits in Kelowna, where desert heat and mountain water craft Canada's most unexpected landscape. This city spreads across the eastern shore of Okanagan Lake, born from valley floors where summer temperatures rival Mediterranean destinations. This is Canada's wine country, where hot summers and cool lake breezes create conditions unlike anywhere else in the nation. The city sits at the heart of the Okanagan Valley, a 200-kilometer stretch of lakes, orchards, and vineyards carved between mountain ranges. The lake itself stretches 135 kilometers through the valley, its deep waters moderating temperatures year-round. Beaches line the waterfront, where families gather in summer heat that regularly climbs above 30 degrees Celsius. The lake reaches depths of 232 meters, holding mysteries including the legendary Ogopogo, a serpent-like creature in local folklore. Sailboats drift across the surface while beneath, kokanee salmon run through waters that stay cool even in August. Surrounding hills climb away from the water, their slopes covered in neat rows of grapevines. Over 40 wineries operate within minutes of downtown, producing wines that compete internationally. The valley's unique microclimate comes from its position in the rain shadow of the coastal mountains. While Vancouver receives 1,200 millimeters of rain annually, Kelowna sees just 380. This semi-arid landscape supports not just grapes, but orchards heavy with peaches, cherries, and apples. The harvest season transforms the valley into a patchwork of gold and crimson, with farm stands selling fruit still warm from the sun. The valley widens south of Kelowna, revealing even more of the Okanagan's sun-soaked treasures. This region stretches through British Columbia's interior like a ribbon of warmth, where desert landscapes meet fertile valleys in Canada's driest climate. The valley runs north to south for over 200 kilometers, cradled between rolling hills that protect it from Pacific storms. Okanagan Lake forms the heart of this valley, a deep blue ribbon of water stretching 135 kilometers through the landscape. This ancient lake reaches depths of over 230 meters in places, carved by glaciers that retreated 10,000 years ago. The Syilx people have called these shores home for thousands of years, naming the lake after the sacred spirit Nha'aitk that dwells in its depths. Today, beaches line the shoreline where families gather in summer, while orchards and vineyards climb the benchlands above the water. Penticton sits where two lakes meet, nestled between Okanagan Lake to the north and Skaha Lake to the south. This city of 35,000 people enjoys over 2,000 hours of sunshine each year. The name comes from the Syilx word meaning a place to stay forever, and many who visit understand why. Historic downtown streets lead to sandy beaches, while the surrounding hills offer hiking trails with views across the Twin Lakes. Summer brings festivals and farmers' markets, while winter transforms nearby mountains into ski slopes. The wine country vineyards spread across the valley's slopes, where unique microclimates create perfect growing conditions. Over 130 wineries now call the Okanagan home, producing wines that compete with the world's best. The combination of hot days, cool nights, and diverse soils allows everything from bold reds to crisp whites to flourish. Rows of grapevines follow the contours of the land, creating patterns that change with each season. Small family operations work alongside larger estates, all taking advantage of this special terroir that exists nowhere else in Canada. Returning west toward the coast, the Fraser River guides us through a valley that has served as British Columbia's highway of history. This fertile lowland follows the mighty Fraser River as it carves its final path to the Pacific, creating a landscape where agricultural plains give way to dramatic gorges and peaceful mountain lakes. The valley serves as British Columbia's historic gateway, a natural route that First Nations traveled for millennia and later guided explorers, gold seekers, and railway builders into the heart of the province. The Fraser Canyon marks where the river transforms from a broad waterway into a raging torrent. Here, the water has cut through solid rock over millions of years, creating walls that rise 1,000 meters straight up from the riverbed. The canyon stretches for nearly 270 kilometers, its narrowest point at Hell's Gate, forcing the entire flow of Canada's longest undammed river through a passage just 35 meters wide. Indigenous peoples fished these turbulent waters for thousands of years, building wooden platforms that clung to the canyon walls to net salmon, fighting their way upstream. North of the canyon, Harrison Lake spreads across 218 square kilometers between mountain ranges. Fed by glacial streams, its waters reach depths of 279 meters and maintain a deep turquoise color throughout the year. The lake stretches 60 kilometers into wilderness areas, accessible only by boat, where hot springs bubble up from volcanic activity deep beneath the surface. These thermal waters have drawn visitors since time immemorial, with the Sis-Ales First Nation considering them sacred healing sites long before the first hotels appeared in the 1880s. As the light shifts across ridgelines and tide pools, British Columbia keeps its quiet rhythm. Ancient forests breathing in mountain mist, cold rivers threading their way to the Pacific, and wildlife moving unseen through endless green. It's a place defined not by borders or names, but by the feeling of being small in something vast, alive, and still untamed. From the Spirit Bear's shadowed trails in the Great Bear Rainforest to the sea-washed shores of Tofino, from the blues of Joffre Lake to the steep rock faces above Seton Lake, every stretch of land offers new shapes and silences. Click on the video that's appearing now to continue your journey of the wonders of the world.